I've had a few other communities contact me about the league and like, what are the details with it? Can we get in on it? So I know there is interest out there. And so next year will be, hopefully, I would love to see it double at least.
Welcome to episode 221 of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland. Buzz is starting to grow around the newest addition to the Baseball Alberta fleet of offerings. 2023 will be the pilot season for the new Alberta Girls Baseball League. It'll feature 3 associations, the Beaumont Minor Baseball Association, Edson Prospects Baseball, and the Rockian District Baseball Association. All 3 took part in the Spruce Grove Girls Baseball Tournament last year and were all keen to grow it into a league. Not only do they hope to grow the game and grow as a league with more teams in the future, but also to help keep girls in the game longer to become more of a pipeline for future provincial and national teams. I was able to sit down for a great chat with Baseball Alberta Girls and Women's Director Barb Northcott recently to talk about the league, the potential, and the hope to also change the conversation about girls in baseball. Barb, thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Really appreciate the opportunity.
Let's start with the Alberta Girls Baseball League, a brand new endeavor through Baseball Alberta. Take us back to the beginning on this one, though. What inspired this idea?
Associations in Alberta really struggled with girls programming. They would put together girls teams, then they would play in the boys league. So that was what I was hearing, that yes, we'll have a girls team, but the girls really may not want to come back next year because there's no place for the girls teams to play. So that's when I proposed to Baseball Alberta that really forever nothing has changed. We're trying to bring girls to the game, but we're not providing an opportunity for them, to play with girls and against girls. So let's us create the league. Let's us be the leaders in that, rather than relying on our associations to, just work even harder to put more effort into it. Let's us do that as the governing body. We'll run the league, and then they put the teams in, and we provide those opportunities. So that was really the basis for the start of it.
Maybe take us back to the was it pre-COVID when you were dreaming this idea up? Was this during COVID? Walk us through sort of the timing of this, because obviously it's been challenging to try to navigate the last few years and trying to launch new ideas.
Exactly. And Baseball Canada has a girls committee that we met virtually through COVID. And it was a fantastic opportunity to talk with the other provinces and find out, what their struggles are, what their opportunities are to do better things. What can they offer? What are they offering? And Nova Scotia had started, and granted, they are smaller geographically, so it was easier for them, but they offered this girls programming, and they called it the Blue Nose League, which is kind of cool. But so that's when I thought, well, why can't we do that? We do have more challenges, basically geographic, but let's give it a whirl. And so what we did last year in 22 is offered a girls only tournament. And so Edson, Rocky Mountain House, and Beaumont put teams in the 9U and 12U. We were hoping for more teams so we could have it over 2 days, but we did those 3 communities, set up games for them. So we had a 1-day tournament. And it was those communities that I reached out to and said, would you be interested in this pilot? We wanted to keep it small so we could address any of the issues that are, would arise on a smaller scale, and then next year grow it. So those 3 communities have signed on. It was a definite yes, right? No talking them into it. It was like, yes, let's do this. This is fantastic. This is what we've been looking for. This will be awesome. We will be able to keep the girls that played together last year, I was going to lose some of them, but knowing that they'll get to play other girls 3 times in the season, yes, I think we can keep them all together, and we'll have a girls team in this league, no problem. So that was really rewarding to have that set up so quickly.
Absolutely. When you think about going back to that tournament idea at first, did you have any prerequisites in mind as far as what kinds of teams you were looking for? Was it just the basis of, and even going to the creation of the pilot league here, were you looking for anything in particular when it comes to, say, interest from girls in each of the communities? Was it the coaches and the associations and their willingness to take part? Did you have anything in mind on that front?
Just we knew that it's going to be an introductory level, so just that we would have numbers. We thought that maybe the 12U tournament would be a little better caliber. It wasn't, but keep in mind those girls didn't have an opportunity for the previous 2 years, some of them maybe 3 years, even to play. So I stayed with the 9U tournament. I watched the 12Us for a little bit, but I was so just inspired to see all these young 9-year-old girls and under. There were a couple 6 and 7-year-olds. Just their sheer joy of playing, and they weren't like, ooh, we get to play with girls. They were just, we're playing baseball, and this is a fantastic opportunity. So that's the kind of I guess marker was their enjoyment, was their pleasure at participating.
When you look back on it and you're thinking about 9U and 12U, was there rhyme or reason to those age brackets? Is that sort of a year where we start to see interest in the game going away a little bit, or is there, walk us through the decision to go with those 2 specific division levels?
Well, we need to start a base, and so we have a large number of girls that register in the 9U age category. And then they do taper off. As it moves up, they taper off. So playing co-ed at 9U is okay. But then when they have to move up, and so we call it 12U because girls in Alberta can play 1 year overage in every division. So the girls, you can have a whole team of 12-year-old girls playing in the 11U league. So they do start to drop off after that age 12, because then they move up into the next age bracket. But the boys are starting to throw harder. And one thing that we do need our associations to do is to teach, and not only girls, but to teach the boys how to take a hit at the plate. So don't dodge out of the way. Of course, dodge out of the way, but roll with it, or whatever, technique you're going to teach. But make sure that we're teaching them younger. So when they do move up, that's not a factor as to why they're leaving. That is sort of the basis of why we started at 9U and 12U, to build that base, keep those girls together, provide a league for them, and then teach them the technical pieces that they need to know. And we'll just build that league. So as the girls age through it, there'll be 3 teams that age up. But as the 9Us come along, we'll build more, because there are more athletes at that age level. When we open it up to the province, there may be other communities that already have 12U teams. So that would be, the goal. I've had a few other communities contact me about the league and like, what are the details with it? Can we get in on it? So I know there is an interest out there. And so next year will be, hopefully, I would love to see it double at least. And I don't know if we would have 14U if we had enough communities that said, say we had 3 communities that had 14U girls teams. I don't see why Baseball Alberta wouldn't be able to organize a league for that 14-year-old group as well.
Looking ahead to this summer, how are you going to be measuring success? You mentioned off air that you're hoping to maybe get out to a few games and really see things from the ground level. What are you going to be keeping an eye on to make sure that this thing not only goes off without a hitch, but gives you a really good base to work on as you look to expand in the future?
So the teams that are playing in the girls' league are also playing in co-ed leagues. For example, Rocky Mountain House will be playing in the Central Alberta League. So and then they'll have 3 Saturdays where they're playing. They'll host, and then they'll travel to Beaumont and Edson. So what I hope is it becomes almost like an advertising venue where the girls, other towns, and say there are sisters watching their brothers play against the girls team, and then parents start talking and say, well, we also play in this girls league, and then it becomes another community sees that it can be done, and so they want to participate. So that's what I hope to see come from this, is that we expand, and we expand by showing that it's that cliche, if you don't see it, you can't be it. So if we can show other young female athletes that if you're interested in baseball and you like it, but you're just hesitant to play because it's always just boys, you're the only girl, or that you're the only one of 2 girls. But yes, you would come to the game if you were with a whole team of girls and got to play against girls.
How much of the expansion plan hinges on geography? You hinted at it earlier, but are we married to that Beaumont area, or are there other areas that you can jump in on? Beyond that, what would you consider to be controllable expansion?
So what it would be probably the most successful at is if we were to have pods or areas, zones that were able to produce girls teams, and then come together for, say, a provincial championship. So Zone 4 plays together, Fort McMurray, and they have expressed interest. And so, if they have 2 teams in Fort Mac, so they've got already two games that they can play there, home and home with the 2 different teams. We're also hoping to expand into the Indigenous communities, and then there's, say, our four teams up in the Fort Mac area, and then we can open it up to the rest of the province, and maybe there are teams in Edmonton that they have a home and home, so they go up to Fort Mac and play, and then Fort Mac comes down to play. We just have to, be aware of what our parents are willing to do at the young age levels, and then work within that.
When you look ahead to this summer, what excites you the most?
Well, just that people are talking about girls baseball. That the Canada Summer Games is offering 16U girls baseball, first time ever. So our young girls, our 14-year-old girls that are 14 this year, they'll qualify to go to the Canada Summer Games. So these 9U and 12U girls can look forward to a national competition, which is, a real key component of our growth of the game, that we have these experiences that are offered to girls. So that's exciting, that we're talking about the other opportunities. So in the news about, our our females that are coaching now. Ashley Stevenson with the Vancouver Canadians. We have umpires. Eileen Hartman from Alberta. She's an official scorer. She scored. She was the official scorer at the Canada Games in Niagara Falls in 2022. Like these opportunities, not just for athletes, but where baseball can take you. Sherry Reiniger, she's been to the Olympics as a technical committee person. Really, baseball, you learn the skills, you learn the game, and then there's all these different opportunities. That's what's exciting, that we're starting to talk about that now, that it's not just if you knew that person, you knew this was available. Everyone's talking about girls baseball.
It's interesting. You segued into a question I was going to ask a little bit later on, but I'll get into it. Is how important is a league like this, not just from a player development perspective, but also from a coaching development perspective as well? Because being able to show some of these coaches the way to do things and different ways of doing things and really being, I'll call it allies in trying to grow the game and be your best ambassadors for the game as well. Talk about that level of being able to grow the game from not just a playing perspective, but also a coaching and managing and organizational perspective.
It's huge. That's another component of the Girls League, is that not only providing opportunities for our athletes, but for coaches and for umpires. And we have athletes out there who are interested in coaching. This year, our women's team, our 16U team, and our 14U team will all have female coaches on the rosters. So that is a big step, toward fostering that part of the game, creating leaders in that respect. So the Girls League will just keep bringing that to the game. Edson and Beaumont both have women coaches. Rocky also has a women's coach at the 9U level. And so these are opportunities that possibly wouldn't have been available to them. And so, yeah, we're growing leaders everywhere, at the grassroots level and then at the coaching level. And then we're also showing our other females that there are these opportunities as well. And so our next area that we need to really focus on is our umpiring, bringing more females to the umpiring side.
From a number of different levels, you've seen the game, especially as you think about what your daughters went through as an athlete. How has that conversation changed? I know in watching her TED Talk, for example, and some of the things that she and her friends were told about, girls playing baseball and that kind of thing. Are in your eyes, are you seeing a bit of a change in the way that people are talking about women's baseball?
I'll be able to gauge that better after this year, but up until this point, I would say it's changed a little bit, not enough. Our girls are stronger. Our girls have more opportunities to have seen that someone has done it before. Mm-hmm. They have heard more about it, but they're still experiencing it to a degree. And so I hope after this season that I hear, wow, I've never had such a great year. This really worked out well for me. Mm-hmm. I hope that's, but honestly, it hasn't changed enough is really my bottom line.
It's interesting you mentioned that, and you also alluded to something that I've said on this show quite a few times, is if you can see it, you can be it. And I'm curious how much of the work that you're putting into it is based on that looking at what other sports are doing, whether it's basketball or soccer, particularly, where there's been a lot of success and there's a lot of attention now on the women's game, especially down south. When you think about the women's basketball and March Madness and how crazy that was, you think about here in Canada with the women's soccer team as an example, or women's hockey has really taken off. How much of that has played into your ideal situation where you can actually get out into the community and really start to drive home that point of, hey, let's capitalize on some of the momentum that other sports are taking advantage of?
Well, I think it's a good time in history to be a woman, because there's the realization that, there's been a lot of gender inequity. Mm-hmm. And so now that's coming to the front, and girls can play. Girls baseball is a bit different than boys baseball. There's not the strength there, but there's still lots of skill. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's a wave we want to ride, and just the exposure that the media is giving to all the women in baseball, coaching, front office. It's really a good time to do our part at the grassroots level, to take advantage of that, the media really, mm-hmm. And in promoting girls in baseball.
Well, and you brought up Ashley Stevenson as a great example, but you've got all these different examples, and a lot of these teams and leagues are really loving it as well, which I think is great to see. And whether it's through social media or whether it's through the traditional media sphere, I think there's a real opportunity there. So, and which segues into my next question, which is about just sort of getting out in the communities again. It's been a tumultuous few years with COVID. I know there's a Facebook post I saw recently where Chris James was up in Fort McMurray with Ashley James and Carrie Jesperson. They were doing that Inspire project idea. I know that you haven't been totally at the grassroots level quite yet this spring, but talk about how important it is to be out in the community right now and really get that engagement going as early as possible, given that you're trying to ride this wave that's going on.
It's very important to be back in the community and to be able to teach the technical skills to these young athletes who've missed out on learning. Chris is very valuable to the women's program, to the girls' grassroots program. His team of coaches that he takes with him, we have lots of different abilities that really rise the level of interest and engagement with the young athletes. And so it's super important. And if we had two of Chris, it would be even better. He's quite booked. He's been doing different clinics and camps all through the winter and the early spring here. So yeah, it's great. He's up north. He's in Edmonton. We have one plan to go out to Edson. He'll keep busy doing this, but it's that important work to teach the technical skills so they have success, and then they'll stay, because if they can throw properly and catch properly and hit properly, then it's fun. Mm-hmm. Then they'll stick around.
And speaking of sticking around, a lot of girls have their eyes set on 14U, 16U, and Open championships. And I know that there's some camps coming up in Spruce Grove on April 22nd, April 23rd in Calgary. Plenty of opportunities to get noticed. How important is it to get the word out about those kinds of events as well, and give some of these young grassroots, 9U and 12U girls that idea of, hey, if you stick with it, there's some real opportunities to do some really special things down the road.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned our ID camps, because and I've even invited some parents to bring their younger daughters to these ID camps, not to try out, to see what the level of ability is, and that it's something to strive for. The more advertising we can do, I hear it again and again, and I've heard it this spring, that, oh, I didn't even realize there was a Team Alberta. And where do you go? And you can travel, and so it's like our best kept secret.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, the more exposure we get, the bigger the program becomes.
Mm-hmm. Final question for you here. When you think ahead to the next year and you think about the next, say, 5 years, what do you think is the most important piece in all of this when it comes to growing the game? What kinds of things do you want people to really take away as you try to grow the game here?
The opportunities that baseball provides outside of the game. 94% of women that hold C-suite positions are former athletes. So we're not only growing athletes that will become active for life, we're growing leaders. I want coaches to think about and associations to think about girls programming, and what if they are coaching, and what if they are providing opportunities for girls to become the leaders of tomorrow? Maybe one of those girls will discover the cure for Lou Gehrig's disease.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not just the win-loss column, it's the skills that they take away, the leadership, just problem solving, all these traits you can learn in baseball. Baseball is like a sandbox. It provides this opportunity to, just learn about strategy, how to get along in a group, how to follow rules, really.
Mm-hmm.
Learn from your mistakes, all basically in a safe environment. Our female athletes, they'll learn about adversity, playing in a co-ed situation. They learn how to deal with disappointment, but they will also experience success. And all these skills are transferable into their lives. And, they will go on and take what they've learned from baseball, and most of the time it will be a good experience. And then they will, take that into their work life, into their home life, into their family life. We want them to be active for life. And so that's what I look forward to, that we're able to provide those opportunities. And if we can teach our associations, teach our boards, not to have an unconscious bias about sport, about baseball. And if a girl wants to play baseball, make sure that we're providing safe environments where they feel like they belong and can excel, and so that they don't drop out. And so they stay with the program, and just the opportunities that are available are endless, really.
Well, Barb, a lot of exciting things going on in the girls' game and the women's game, and you're at the forefront, and glad that we were able to connect and chat a little bit more about this. Thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast again.
Thank you, Joe, and I really appreciate all the support you give our female athletes.
Thanks again to Barb Northcott for joining us this week. We certainly wish everyone involved in the grassroots of the game the very best this summer. We hope to check back in with them later on in the year to see how things went. Thanks as well to all of you for downloading and listening, and a tip of the cap to our Platinum supporters for all they do for us and for baseball in Alberta. The Okotoks Dogs and AHP Academy have been integral in helping us tell the stories of the game here in our province. For more on all of our teammates, head to albertadugoutstories.com/supporters. Until next time, thank you for all of your support online, on social, and on air of Alberta Dugout Stories.